Well, all right, now let me get to my friend Peggy Hubbard, who was nice enough to ride her motorcycle over here and join us in downtown St. Louis today. How are you?
Oh, good. It was a good ride over.
But it was.
It was a great ride.
I tried to hitch a ride, and she tells me she only has one seat.
One
so
solo seat.
She's not going to put me on the handlebars.
No.
No? No. That'd be a good picture, though, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for coming down.
No problem.
You and I were talking about this Maria Chappelle-Nadal thing just a minute ago. It just, the reaction, had that been a Republican who said that about Barack Obama, would have been 180 degrees in a different direction.
I remember when former President Obama gave his State of the Union address, and there was a person in the audience that called him a liar.
Stood up and called him a liar.
Yeah. And then we had people that were actually white supremacists and nationalists that were plotting his death. So, and that was, oh my God, this is bad. They're talking about our president like this. And they jumped on the bandwagon and came to the man's defense. They're doing the same thing to President Trump. And it's okay. Mark, it's not okay. It is for any sitting president, whether you like him or not, it is not okay.
No. I don't know what her excuse is. She said she's just frustrated by the whole thing. I assume the whole thing is referring back to this Charlottesville incident. The whole reason this thing happened is that this group, this white supremacy group, took out a permit to come and protest in support of a Confederate War memorial statue. They did not want it to be removed.
Right.
And now the left wants to claim that anybody who supports keeping Confederate monuments must be a neo-Nazi or a Klan member or something like that,
racist,
which is ridiculous.
Or a sellout like me. And it's not about celebrating racism, the slavery era. And people don't understand, Mark. It was not all about slavery. Slavery was a very small part of why the South and the North broke. We had slaves as far up as Vermont, north. So it wasn't all about slavery. It was about taxation. It was about land ownership. It was about numerous things. And we are so caught up on one little facet of history, slavery.
But even if we just assume for a moment, if we grant the left the point that at least part of it was about slavery, and I know that for some people who fought in the Confederacy, that's exactly what it was about. It was about their economy. They wanted to maintain their workforce, which in large part didn't cost them anything because they were slaves. I know that was a portion of why the war was fought. Right. Why now? Why do you think all these years later, 104 years after the monument in St. Louis was erected, some granite and steel on top of it and some etchings in the side of it, why has it become such a focal point all these years later when nobody in the world was alive when any of that happened? And I know I'll take grief for saying this, but if you look around the world where other tragedies have occurred, there aren't. Somebody called me up today and said, well, there are no statues to Adolf Hitler. Well, there were no statues to Adolf Hitler at the time, but they do still maintain the concentration camps as memorials to what happened.
Right.
So that you don't forget the horrors that have happened in the past.
Exactly. And I was lucky enough to go to those places and see it for myself. And it was very sobering and it was very humbling to walk through there and know that millions and millions of people have died in that place. And my question to the country, St. Louis in general, is Obama was in office for 8 years. There was no talk of removing any Confederate statues. Only one reason I can only come up with is because of President Trump. That's the only reason why that's the only equation. It was not a factor 8 years ago when he was in office. Now all of a sudden, it's a problem. Why is that?
You told me that folks have reached out to you from around the country because of the research that you did surrounding this memorial in St. Louis. Tell me about that.
Well, what happened was we put our heads together, the Daughters of the Confederate. Mayor Cruson gave a press conference, as you know, and she said they did not exist. I picked up my smartphone and I Googled them within 5 minutes. I was talking to them within 10 minutes, telling them what was going on and what was happening. And they gave me the number to the president of the Daughters of the Confederate right here in Missouri, and she lives in Chesterfield. Talked to her about the monument, and she gave me the ordinance that was originally written for the monument back when they erected it. And I found that at City Hall. So me being the person that I am and my background working for the government, I went and found the paperwork and all the ordinances in the City Hall. And the mayor blatantly overlooked, ignored all the ordinances. And there were 4 ordinances telling her she has to get permission. And she said, we don't need permission because we own it. Well, guess what? We went through the Historical Society of Missouri. We went to Jefferson City, and Lord and behold, there the deed sat. The original deed was there, and the city never owned them. And I looked at the other monuments throughout Forest Park, and come to find out, city doesn't own those either. They don't own them. They never have.
What about around the country?
Similar things have been in place, like our ordinances. The problem that we're having is we don't have enough people to come together, stand up together. I'm only one person. I can only guide you. But they have similar ordinances in Virginia, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas. They have these ordinances there for when these statues and monuments were erected. They were erected, and they are ordinances that are on the books that these politicians are blatantly ignoring. They're just doing it. And Baltimore did it, I believe, in the middle of the night.
Middle of the night, took 4 of them down.
Took 4 of them down.
Right.
And they don't even have the right. They don't even own those. They're not in ownership of those. And that's what the public and that's what the mainstream media is not telling people. They're showing this, but there's documentation showing that the cities never owned them.
For the media covering it, they're willing accomplices in it. But it strikes me that given what's happened in Charlottesville, if somebody from another planet happened to arrive since that happened and read the media accounts of it, they would be convinced that the only people who support keeping these monuments in place are neo-Nazis and white supremacists. And therefore, what the parallel they seem to want to draw is if you support keeping these monuments, you're on the same side as white supremacists and Klan members. So they want to draw an equivalency there to try to scare people away from this issue.
Right.
That's what part of this is about.
And I was in Sturgis, and there was a man that walked up to me in his vest. He had his patches on. He had his colors on. And look, as a biker, you know what those patches mean. So I knew what he was. And he walked up to me. He said, "Are you Peggy Hubbard?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "I just want to shake your hand." I said, "Okay." I said, "Why?" He said, "You're that lady that fought for the monuments in Missouri and got them away from the mayor." I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And he said, looking at my vest, "You know what I am." He was Klan. He said, "I just want to tell you thank you for trying to save history." And he said, "I want to shake your hand, and can I have a picture?" I was thrown that this man reached out to me knowing what he is and what he stands for. He came to me in broad daylight and shook a black person's hand because it was saving his heritage. It's all of our heritage. We're U.S. citizens. It's a part of us, whether we like it or not. Blacks died on the side of the Confederacy. Blacks also died on the side of the Union. So why wipe it away? And I tell my black counterparts, if you take away all the monuments and proof of what happened, your argument is now over because you have no proof it happened. We took it all away. So we can learn from this. This is a teachable moment. This is a learning moment. And we are stepping back into Nazi Germany, 1938.
That's Peggy Hubbard joining me in studio. Can you hang around?
Sure.
All right. I've got the phone lines are full. I want to get to a few phone calls if you don't mind taking a few calls. 314-969-9797, 866-455-9797. We're back right after this.